Okay, welcome, welcome. So you can go ahead to the next one as well. All right, let me back up here. Before we start, there are some housekeeping items that I'd like to go over. One is that we will be posting a copy of the PowerPoint in chat, and it'll have an area where you can take notes. You'll need to print it out. But if you're the type that needs to do that, then you've got it. So, and we are going to be recording it. And we will, looks like it's already started. Okay. Okay. And then we'll eventually post it on our website, which is score.org//Canton. We're asking that if you have questions for Jeannie, that you put them into the Q&A only, and we'll answer them as we go. If Jeannie has a question for you and wants you to answer it, please use the chat. It just kind of helps us keep track of the Q&As better, the questions better. And lastly, you will receive a copy of you will receive a survey, a quick survey sometime later this week, giving us some suggestions on how we might be able to improve this. So, okay, so what the heck is SCORE? SCORE is a national nonprofit. We began back in '64, and now we have the largest network of volunteers and small business mentors in the U.S. We mentor startups. We mentor organizations that are struggling, whether it's for-profit, nonprofit. It's really the first step to starting your dream business or growing your existing business. You can see there's a little factoid there that small business clients who receive 3 hours of mentoring report higher revenues and increased business growth. That's basically 3 sessions where you're sitting down with one of our mentors. So, next slide, please. Okay, our mission is really to support our small business communities by providing free and confidential mentoring and providing educational workshops and webinars like this. We believe small businesses are important because they impact the national economy and create jobs within the community. Next slide. Okay. We're able to do this for free because we're supported by the Small Business Administration and generous sponsors, and to our network of over 10,000 volunteers. Next slide. And if you want to contact us, there's a QR code, score.org. I think it's loaded with lots of really good information. You can you'll find a mentor, or you'll be able to become a volunteer, which I am. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeannie. Jeannie, can you flip it to the next slide, please? There you go. Jeannie Wheat.
Well,
All yours.
thank you, Ed. And also, just real quick, I don't know if everybody's familiar with where they can find the Q&A. Can you help guide them?
Yeah, you should. There should be along the bottom of your screen, there should be a Q&A icon as well as a chat icon. Might be in different places depending upon if you're using, your laptop, your desktop, your iPad, or your phone. But it's there for everybody. You just have to look for it. So
I found mine actually where the more is. There's 3 dots and then more underneath it. So if your screen looks like mine, that's where you're going to find it. But I just thank you so much. Welcome everybody. I'm really excited to be here today. Oops, sorry, I just clicked on the wrong thing. Just to introduce myself a little bit, talking about the topic of work-life balance. I've been kind of juggling those things and a lot of things in life like the rest of you in terms of small business even. Dale Carnegie. I am an independent contractor with them, and started with them about 30 years ago. Been doing different areas, conducting different areas of training and development for individuals, for organizations, and including things like, our in-person training, our online, and many of the programs that we have. I'll tell you a little bit about what we have available at the very end. But I am married. I live in Akron, have 6 beautiful kids, and life keeps me busy. So I totally understand some of the different um, imbalances that we can all have as not only, just maybe parents and people in general, but also within the workplace. To give you a little bit about, just to kind of set up our workshop today, I wanted to tell you a bit about our philosophy. So Dale Carnegie training, we really work on performance change. And in order for people to have performance change, there needs to be some other change in place as well. And starting off really with emotional change. And today I believe we're going to be working on looking at ways that we can change our emotional change, which means our attitude, the way that we think about things. Today happens to be about work-life balance and creating that balance. So how do we look at our life and look at our time even, and to try to make the most of it, to have it align with our values and where we want to go. Once we have that emotional change in place, then we can we're more willing to do the things that maybe are uncomfortable, or to change the habits that we've had over time. Because basically, when you look at it, really our life just kind of proceeds on with our habits and what we've developed for ourselves over the years. So ultimately, again, to get to this performance change. So emotional change, which is attitude, how we think, how we look at things. Behavior change is what we do about it. And then the performance change is what the outcome is, or the results that we're expecting. So today's workshop, obviously, is work-life balance, and I'm really glad that we're all here today to talk a little bit about this. As I was preparing for this, I was starting to pick up some things, thinking, yeah, I really need to work on this myself. So it's perfect timing, I think, for a lot of us, and I don't think you'd be here if you didn't feel so yourself. But when I'm going to ask for participation, because the next 60 to 90 minutes that we're going to be together, it gets really long if I don't get any feedback from you. And that's just not my style or Dale Carnegie's style. We need to hear and get a little input. So we'll utilize the chat. And I also don't mind if people come on audio and answer or contribute. And this is an opportunity for that. So when we think of, or we hear the word work-life balance, what comes to mind? So just if you want to, feel free to just shout out a word, a feeling about it, or maybe even you have a really quick story that you would like to contribute. This is your time to do it. What comes to mind when we hear the phrase work-life balance?
Can you, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can all of you unmute yourselves? So if you wanted to make a comment, I'm not sure if you have that ability or not. If you raise your hand, I'll unmute you on my end.
But here we go. We have some in the chat here. So not letting work overtake
Okay.
your entire life. Absolutely. Yeah, that's family, work, lifestyle, combining those and creating that balance that we're looking for. Flexibility to prioritize. Absolutely. Yep. Boundaries. There you go. Yeah, we're going to be talking a little bit about that later on. That balancing, it's a juggling act, isn't it? It's kind of like, oh gosh, how do I balance all these things that are up in the air? Reese, yeah, this phrase probably came out of the realization that many people overdo the work and miss out on life. And isn't that the truth? So often, I mean, when we talk about balance, I really, when I think about it, kind of get on a deeper level. To me, it's about finding the joy in life. And we're living this life, not just to work, 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 and all play and no fun, right? So how do I find that joy and make the people in my life and those experiences part of my everyday, or as much as possible. So we're going to take a closer look at ways that we can create more balance, whatever that looks like for each one of us, because it's going to be different. But as you can see, just even in the chat, that work-life balance means something different to each of us. And for some of it is boundaries, others it's flexibility, fulfillment, simply having time to breathe a little bit, and exploring the balance. Today we're going to explore what the balance looks like for each one of us. It's definitely not a one size fits all conversation. Today we have the chance to reflect, share, to learn, to maybe some practical strategies that can help us feel more aligned. And some of these things that we brought up, we're going to talk about, but they're things that we're kind of aware of. But maybe there's going to be a different take or some contribution from each one of us within here, this room, that we'll learn something new. And if we can have one or two little gems that are going to go out to help us create a more balanced life, then I think we're in a winning situation. So let's take a look at our overall objectives for this workshop. We are going to have an opportunity in just a moment to assess ourselves and just get a kind of better feel for the balance that's in our lives. Define where we could spend more time or even less time, because that's part of the balancing act, right? That's all work and no play. Makes Jeannie a really dull girl, I can tell you. So we need to create those balance moments, and then plan to bring more balance into our professional and personal lives, which I think all these are in somewhat, they could be a little bit repetitive in terms of our thought, but let's take a look at where we're at. So the challenge really is what happens and why and all that, what contributes to the lack of balance or losing our balance. We may be going along and all of a sudden something kind of throws us off. And it makes me think about a time when I was up in Calgary with my family, and my mother and father-in-law were walking, and we were at the Olympics, the Winter Olympics. And that's where Eddie the Eagle, we actually we're on our way to watch him, and we're climbing this, get up, take the chairlift up, walking across the snow, and it got to a really icy section, and I was kind of slipping a little bit, and I said, well, let me go ahead of you to my mother-in-law because I don't want you to fall. So she's being held up by her husband and my husband, and walking along the ice, and I'm up there leading the way to give her some guidance. And sure enough, who's the one that falls? I just totally took a dive, and it was along the way, I'm like worried about her and her moves, and trying to keep things under control. But sometimes it's really that slippery slope that can take things right out from underneath us and throw everything out, off on a loop. And it's a lot of times some of that may happen like over a period of time. It may happen all of a sudden, but there's different factors that can lead to that. And so let's take a look at some of those factors for ourselves in terms of internal and external, what we call icy spots. So think about like what have been some of the icy spots for you when you've noticed that things are challenging or kind of going in the wrong direction. If you're feeling that pressure, that tension and angst, the feeling that you're spending too much time in one area, things don't feel real good. You're not having any fun. Your family's going off and doing things without you. What are some of those icy spots that we have? And you can mark some of that down too, in the chat, that of what are those external spots. So some of them, like if you take a look at this, injury, illness, job change, some of those things that are kind of thrown at us that we don't necessarily have control over. Marriage and divorce, maybe we do have some control, but maybe at that point in time we really don't. Weddings, big time things that we have to spend a lot of time doing. Becoming a caregiver for an aging parent. Just last week, I had to go out to Colorado. My brother has Alzheimer's, and help my sister-in-law with that. And so it's it's one of those curveballs that comes in that, you really want it, you have to make time for. It's not necessarily one of the most fun things that we have to do, but we have to be able to allow for those moments to be able to spend with the people so we don't have any of those regrets. Yeah, children's needs, exactly. And then when we look over at the icy spots, those internals, those are really those are more of the like who we are and how our attitude towards life. And so when we think back at that transformational formula that I introduced right at the beginning of emotional change plus behavior change plus, equals performance change, some of these icy internal spots can be a part of that attitude part that we need to shift, or we need to do something about so that we have the energy to be able to practice things different, put them into place, or take control of them so that we have those different outcomes. So when just in taking a look at those, just exhaustion, are we getting enough sleep at night? Do we put things off to the last minute and then bring that stress and that mindset of overwhelm in, and it just kind of throws things off balance? Do we feel like it's all about me? We have that pity party where we kind of go into that victim mode, and that happens to everybody. Sometimes we just get overwhelmed and, we look at everyone else and why do they have this and I don't? And so we want to work on avoiding that so that it doesn't create more imbalance in our life. Okay, so some of these are all things, and taking a look, and you don't really need to put them into the chat or anything. And if anybody has anything that you want to ask or contribute as we go through, please come on audio and let us know. But lack of enthusiasm, here's one, is how much do we, when we wake up, do we wake up with a mindset of gratitude and a mindset of here, I have another day and I get to work on these things, or to be able to or create some more balance in my life. So how enthusiastic am I in approaching these different challenges or just different endeavors that we work through every day? So let's take a look now, and after looking at these icy spots and thinking about, in what ways have these thrown my life out of balance, whether they're internal or external, let's look at an assessment right now. And I don't know, so we can work right off the screen, or if you printed it out, it might be kind of small to see all these things, but um, my recommendation is as you go through, we're looking at answering these with either a yes or a no. And don't think on it really too hard, but work consumes more of my time than I would like. Absolutely. I would definitely give that a yes. As much as I love my work, it does take up a lot of time and not give me that balance that I'm looking for. So as you go through, just take note of all the yeses that you have come up with. And when you're done, why don't you just post that number? And that's number's a personal number. It doesn't mean anything really to us, but just post it in the chat so that you can have record of it. So we'll take the next 30 seconds and just go on down and answer yes or no. All right. Thanks. Is it SJ? SJ JD? So 11. Okay. Wow. Oh my. I shouldn't have said that, Terry. Sorry. Not just number 11, but total. Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? When we start to take a look at kind of how we're spending our time every day. I know I have a pretty large number myself, and it's kind of like, I don't know, is this a realization for you? Um, but when you take a look at it really, and as you go down, if you have more than three yeses, it's starting to indicate that your life is kind of drifting out of balance. And the number of yeses indicates really like the degree of imbalance that you're currently experiencing. So is anyone surprised besides me at the result that you got? Yes, no, no surprises? Yeah, so seven, absolutely, yeah, not surprised at all. Meaning either that's a good thing or a bad thing. You got it under control, or maybe not. You're not surprised that it's a high number. Yeah, you're right. So I think just in self-discovery and taking a look at this, and I'm sure there's a lot of other surveys that'll point out, different areas that you can rank yourself in, but I think we have to ask ourselves, what common habits or situations do we have that are getting in the way or throwing us off that balance? Yeah, Corinne, and we're going to be talking about some ways to help bring that back in today. But what habits or situations, do we have? Who's going to come on audio? Is that a possibility, Ed? Um, and just answer the question, like, what are some of the common habits or situations that we have that we know that are throwing us off balance, just to get more of a conversation going, so it's not just one way here.
Jeannie, there's probably a way that I can, there's probably a way to unlock everybody, but I'm not
Fully
familiar.
sure.
I can do it
Okay.
individually. So if someone wants to throw their name in chat, I'll look for them and open up their mic.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to ask a few questions here just to kind of okay. So short of leaving my job, I am not sure because I feel as if it stems from my personal personality type. Okay. So, um, okay. So yeah. And so with that, so things that are throwing you off balance, so something must be happening, or maybe it's your interaction with people, that maybe it's taken wrong or something that's throwing things off. um and we have to think about, like, what triggers what triggers that off balance effect. And and I guess the question, Terry, too, then is, are you aware of like what's triggering those habits? um or or what have you tried anything already to regain the balance? So for everyone, we want to ask ourselves, really, what are the common habits or situations that are throwing us off? And then ask, what are those triggers? Like, what triggers those habits? For example, maybe fear of missing out something, maybe it's client pressure. um, what have you tried in the past to regain it, or maybe could try? So life, okay. Yeah, overwhelmed by so many things to do. Exactly. Okay. Busy life, work, family, doctor's visits. Okay, and we get into the habit of that vicious cycle where we keep responding to the same thing. So let's take a look at a few core principles for creating balance, because it sounds like we're all facing very similar things and probably a pretty big sense of overwhelm. And let's see if some of these things might help us out. So here are some core principles of work-life balance. And the first one being, and there's probably many, but let's just work with these to start. So intentionality over perfection. So today, I think if we get anything out of this workshop, maybe some tidbits on creating the balance, but is the mindset, that attitude of being more intentional of of my time, of where I'm going, with my life, my goals, my values. How does what I do every day fit into that? What are my priorities? So being more intentional, because balance isn't about doing everything perfectly. It's about making intentional choices that align with your values and priorities. So how can I be that intentional person, not worried about being perfect in everything? Okay. The second area then is the boundaries. When we have boundaries, they give us a sense of empowerment. Setting clear boundaries between work and personal life helps protect our time, our energy, and our mental health. Your type A personality with a big, busy family, in addition to a job that I wanted to excel in. Yeah, that's hard to be able to learn how to take control. We're going to work with some Dale Carnegie principles shortly too that might help with that as well. So between intentionality and creating boundaries, another key point for creating balance is being flexible because life is dynamic. Balance may look different from week to week and sometimes day to day or moment to moment, and that's okay. But being able to be adaptable is part of the process. And again, remember, flexibility is an attitude. It's sometimes we have to learn to be calm, to be able to listen more, and to just analyze like what is my priority here? What's the first thing that I have to do? What's my situation? What's my problem? What's causing it? What are some possible solutions? What's the best solution? And how do I act? Those are some additional Carnegie principles in Dale Carnegie's book to work with, but they help us in terms of being more flexible when we truly understand what the issue is or what's throwing us off balance. So flexibility is key. Another area is communication. So, how is our communication when we're feeling like balance isn't in place? Is it because am I having those open conversations with my team or the other managers that are within my company? I think majority of us here on this workshop are small business owners. Now, maybe some aren't, but and maybe some want to be, but I think in terms it's really important that we are very strong communicators with our people. If we don't keep them, if we're not transparent and we don't keep things in the open, not only do we start feeling that pressure of the unknown and it throws things off, whether it's our attitude or our time and issues because there's a lack of communication, but it also affects everybody else on the team. And so if we're feeling it and we're leading by example, they're feeling it also. And so if we're all feeling unbalanced, something's got to change. We need to get control over it. So opening up those conversations with our managers, with the colleagues, in our life, like outside of work, our family members, people that maybe we haven't talked to in a long time. How can we reconnect with them to have communication and help create understanding and solutions maybe to problems and situations? And then the fifth area, another core principle overall is just well-being. Our well-being is really it's not non-negotiable. Our physical, our emotional, our mental health should be prioritized every single day. So that would include things like, are we getting enough sleep? Are we moving? Do we have if it's hard to sit all day, get a desk that elevates so that we can stand behind it and sometimes we just think better when we talk to our people. Maybe we huddle in a standing group because brain goes through our head, it's flowing a little bit better in our body, it's not getting trapped. And connection, well-being, that sense of connection with people. If we're spending all our time work on in front of a computer, we're not connecting with people, and that's not optional. It's not optional, it's not negotiable. That's something that we need to be able to do, to be able to bring more balance and more joy in our life. I don't think we're meant to be in this world to live by ourselves and just focus on work all day long. It's about enjoyment, and it's about people, the people in our lives, and building those relationships. So Dale Carnegie gave us some principles. Now, if you know anything about Dale Carnegie, he wrote the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that book holds like 30 human relations principles. If you read the book, it gives descriptions on how they've been applied, and stories to kind of illustrate them so that you can incorporate them, get a better understanding of how you can incorporate them in your life. Well, in this workshop, here's just a few of the stress and worry principles. There's also 30 of stress and worry principles. He has a book on that, and that's called How to Stop Worrying and Start Living. That book, if you haven't read it, if you feel anxiety, if you worry a lot, you get anxious over things, um, just for your mental health and well-being, that's a book for everybody to read. It's incredible, and it can have a huge impact on your life once you read that. So, um, so let's take a look at these principles and just kind of go through them to see how they can fit into some of those core, um, principles and concepts that we were just talking about. So cultivate a mental attitude that will bring you peace and happiness. So when things are tough, it's not always easy to do that, is it? How do I get positive when everything around me is falling apart? And I feel like I have no control, or the only thing I have control over is something I don't want to be controlling in the moment. So sometimes, cultivating that mental attitude is we need to focus on there's always something that's going right. Maybe it's just that, hey, I woke up that day and I had an opportunity for a do-over, or I had an opportunity to be able to meet somebody new, or to say hi and take 2 minutes with someone, just to get to know them a little bit better in the office. A lot of these things are things that you have to plan for, or have to have the mindset of today I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and to create a more positive attitude. One thing that I hear from a lot of people in different programs that I facilitate, they wake up and they start off their day with a gratitude journal. They get up a little bit earlier, and just try to write down things that are positive. And so it just helps with our attitude and how we approach the day. If we can start that in a positive way, it tends to flow over. And it's whether for our own mental health, it also, remember, flows off onto the people around us. When we're enthusiastic, when we have positive energy, people feel it. And when people feel that, they gravitate towards you, and they also it just shows that you care. And people work harder for people that they know care. That's bottom line. So, principle number 2, fill your mind and thoughts of peace, courage, health, and hope. With this one, I just think about calm. How can we create a little bit of calm within our day to just focus on refocus, to say, okay, I'm going to give this part of what I'm working on this much time. I don't have a deadline till for a couple of days, whatever. I'm going to give this much time, allow up to free some space, in other areas. And work-life balance isn't necessarily all about time management. It's kind of about life management. And and time is part of that, but it's not everything. That's not what this is all about. It's about being able to manage what is most important to you, and your values and your interests and the people in your life, and making sure that we're leaving time for those things, including ourselves. So fill your mind with thoughts of peace, courage, health, and hope. Bring a sense of calm into your day. And if for some reason you just feel like everybody just keeps coming in and it's constant, shut your door. Put a sign on your door and say, I'm available in 10 minutes. And just take a 10-minute deep breathe, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. There's online, boy, you can find anything in terms of breathing and exercises. And if you've never done them before, they really do make a difference. Um, Before you go into a meeting, just sit down for 3 minutes and just do some breathing, and just feel that sense of calm. And it helps you to create that again, that attitude balance, that's going to create other balance in your life. The next one is never get even with your enemies. We energy we want to use our energy really to build and for likability and for like love, not in a strange way, but for love, and not hate. So we don't want to get even with people. Don't think about that. Think about how you can change things yourself for the better next time. How you can do it differently, or what your role played in something. What approach can you change yourself? So it's about accountability. Um, count your blessings, not your troubles. Again, focus on the positive. And be future focused. Where am I going? Where am I headed? Have I written out my goals? Do I remind myself of them every day? What's most important to me? What do I want to make sure that I accomplish by the end of this year? Not just numbers wise in a business, but what about life wise? How can I make the holidays special or more inviting to people in my life? Maybe I'm the one that should be, hosting dinner this year. Maybe bring everybody over, including neighbors and friends that don't have someone. Maybe, bring them in. So, count our blessings. And one of them is that we have the opportunities to do those things and to take charge. Do not imitate others, meaning just, be yourself. Don't try to be something that causes more stress on yourself. It's going to bleak your attitude. And people see it. They see it when you're not being real. And to build connection with people, we need to be who we are, and be intentional. So try to profit from our losses is another principle, which a lot of people say there's no way I'm profiting from my losses, but there's usually, or I would say pretty much almost always, you can find something, create lemonade out of those lemons, turn lemons into lemonade, however you want to look at it. Dale Carnegie talks about that in his book. But how can we make it better? Maybe not profit in terms of money, but profit life wise. Those lessons learned how are we going to use those lessons to grow? And then creating happiness for other people. So I know that when I've been miserable and kind of feeling sorry for myself, the first thing that I do is try to go do something that would be nice for someone else. Because I tell you, it makes me grateful for my life. I look at the people around me that they have it so much worse, in those dark situations, even other people seem to always have it worse than I do. So if I can just muster up the energy to do something to show my gratefulness or how much I care and just bring joy to somebody, it creates a win-win, and it makes me feel like $1 million. And I beg to think that it might do the same for everybody here. And I'm sure a lot of you probably already do that already. Um, so let's take a moment just to explore where things might, for you, feel a bit off balance. And, I guess I ask a question of, especially if you're a small business owner, have you ever felt like your business was running you instead of the other way around? How about if you put your answer to that in the chat? Have you ever felt like your business was running you? And if so, take a look at the principles that are on the screen right now. So in moments like that where you feel like you're not in control, what principles could you keep in mind from this list? Probably should have numbered them, but so in the chat, what do you think? If you face that feeling of out of control at times and experience that imbalance, what principles of these might be helpful to you? Looking back even on the areas that you felt that imbalance. Beverly, I agree. I think there's opportunity to practice all of these, right? Yeah, count your blessings. How do you think I don't know I don't know HA. If you'll come on audio, are you able to do that? Ed, can you bring HA on or type in there? How do you feel?
Yeah.
How is counting your blessings going to help you in that situation?
Okay. He should be able to talk now, I think.
Hi, thank you for putting me on spot here. uh, I think counting your blessing always is helpful because it grounds you back. Just realize that yes, there are difficult things, but there's always that things, you can always look. I'm a practicing Muslim, and I feel like often there's a saying about from our prophet, look at people below you, not at above you. I think it brings you humbleness. And when you count your blessings, it just grounds you, you know?
Mhm.
So
Right.
I think it's just like, and I know that you said that you start your day with a gratitude journal. I just sometimes start my day with meditation, and
Mhm.
those days I do better than those days that I don't.
Absolutely. And it's a sense of just that mindfulness and getting our mindset, that framework in the right place or in the right framework.
Right.
Thank you for contributing. Thanks for that. I love hearing people's voices. It's really hard for me to do these workshops when I don't have that interaction with
It's
people.
actually, you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well,
Anyone else have anything they'd like to say? If you throw your name in the chat, I'll unlock you. No.
yeah.
Okay. HA is the only one with courage today, I guess.
Well, and I think, as life gets busy, I think we need to we just think about, what areas in our life tend to be neglected when everything gets busy. Like we have so much on our plate. And, um, and at that point, that's, it's not just managing our time, but it's also taking a look at priorities. Like how do we prioritize things? So let's take a look at what we call the balance wheel. And some of you
Hey,
may have seen
hey,
this.
Jeannie,
Yes.
we do have a BC
Oh,
that has
OBC. I
something.
would love
So
to hear from you.
I'm gonna throw BC.
Beverly Cotton.
Yeah,
Beverly,
Beverly, can you? I think I unlocked you.
it looks like, oh, there she is. Okay.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, Beverly, how can you contribute? What would you like to add?
okay.
It's not working.
All right, all right. That's I'm showing she's permitted to talk. So you can just go on.
Well, I'll continue on, Beverly, but if for some reason you get it to work, just jump in. We're happy to listen. Okay, so let's move on. So then our next slide here, this balance wheel, some of you may have already looked at this before. We're going to revisit this though, if you have. And it's a measure of the satisfaction we feel with the time and energy that we are devoting to various areas of our life. And it doesn't recommend that every spoke, like we don't, this whole thing doesn't say that every spoke needs to be,
Hi, Ed and Jean. Sorry, I
There
think
you
it
are.
unmute. It gave me off like option to unmute. I'm not sure if Beverly got it.
Okay,
This is HB.
Okay, HB.
thank you. So I don't, if you want to try that again, Ed, you can.
Yeah, I'm showing her mic is live. Well, now it's not. So
Okay. Well, whenever it comes live and you're able to talk, Beverly, just shout it out. I don't mind the interruption at all, or it's fine. So, but what it doesn't recommend is that every spoke of the wheel have an equal opportunity or equal amount of time devoted to it, because that simply isn't going to work. We can't have equal time in every single area of our life. And sometimes we may be just satisfied with the time and energy that we're devoting to an area of our life. And that's good. That's okay. Then we're not off balance in that area, even though it may not be a lot of time and effort at the moment. So, for example, you might have just finished like serving on a community board or committee and want to give that area a rest for a time being. And that's all right. Sometimes we kind of set things aside. Sometimes we have to work on a project at work and we have to focus a lot of time there. But then we know that once that project's done, we can build, our time in other areas. Beverly, are you ready to contribute?
Oh, yes. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we sure can.
Okay. I was just reiterating what you all said. just like getting up in the morning and having, devotional prayer. I'm a Christian, and just taking that time out, like you said, block out times to do everything. Because I work from home, so I have to be very disciplined in what I do. So I have to, just block out times for when I'm working, take a break for lunch. Um, I sometimes walk up and down, the foyer to get some exercise and just stand up and, just do, try to block out times. And I have multiple things that I'm doing. I try to block out times for each project and just, try to spread them throughout the day and just try to discipline myself that way and trying to, bring balance within myself and with what I'm doing.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that. Those are all really great ideas to help everybody out. And when you talked about block time, I agree with that. Sometimes, just in planning our day, writing things down helps us to crystallize our thinking and just even our time. When you look at your calendar every day and you can block things out, for an hour, I'm going to work on this. For 2 hours, I'm working on this. Sometimes it's not a perfect world and we're going to get some interruptions. But if we can say, I'm putting my phone aside, I'm not checking emails, I'm not checking anything for this next hour. It's quiet time, it's me time. I'm focusing on whatever it is, even if it's a work situation. How do we, block out some time, put a note on our door, I'm available at 10 o'clock. It's now 9, so they know that don't interrupt until then. Let us focus. That way we can be present, fully in whatever's next. But if we're just half-hearted trying to throw things and do 5 things at one time, multitasking like we all think we really can do, it doesn't always work really well in the long run. And a lot of times for me anyway, it gives me that feeling of unbalance or imbalance because I never really accomplished one thing that I feel well, like it's done well. And I'm already starting on to something else. And I got to go back and refigure it out. So you talk about time management, some of that block time that you mentioned is something that might be helpful to you, to some other people listening here on the call.
Hey, Jeannie.
Yes.
Beverly mentioned she works from home. You think it's more difficult to keep your work-life balance if you're working at home versus going to the office?
For me personally, I've worked both ways. I work from home now. I've also worked from an office, and it, I think there's distractions in any environment because it's easy to go throw a lot of laundry in or do the dishes or start dinner or, just little things like that, or take a break and start scrolling a little bit. And then all of a sudden oh my goodness, it's been 40 minutes. What happened? I mean, those types of things can happen when you work from home. And then, at the office, you have people walking in and interrupting you. If you're at home, you can, turn the screen off and then you're not interrupted, but then all of a sudden you get behind things as well, So to answer that question, I would probably venture to ask everybody here on the call to answer it for themselves. But I think it's either environment there's going to be distractions. And, block time is just one form of time management that might be useful for people to use. Okay, so let's take a look. We're not looking for perfection in terms of a perfect wheel here, but if you take a look at the different areas, we're going to start off with career. And in career, this area, the wheel compromises, and I'll set up what we need you to do. So we're going to have, we'll put it this way, if you rate yourself, like if you're really satisfied in this area of your life, in terms of balance and that, then you're going to want to score yourself on the outer side of the wheel, meaning closer to the 10. If you're not really satisfied with at any given moment, then with the energy and time we're devoting to, say, your career, you're dissatisfied in some way, then you're going to go towards the 0. So maybe closer to the one mark. Okay, so that's where you're going to want to rate yourself on this wheel. Let's go through and just describe what these areas are. And so the career areas of the wheel compromises it's the time and energy we devote to our career. So for many people, this time goes well beyond like the standard 34 hours a week, due to maybe it's travel, commuting time, bringing work home at night, and even on the weekends. So with this area, where would you rate yourself? 10 down to 1. And I'll just give you like 5 seconds to put that in there, and we'll move on to the next one. Okay. Okay, good. So if you're,
See Beverly has a 10 out there. We have
Yeah.
Stella at 3.
right. So meaning like Stella, then it's you're struggling with that. You're probably, is it because you're overworked, or over career focused, or maybe you need to spend more time there? It can kind of go either way, can it? So can Stella come on audio, Ed?
Yeah, let me see if I can do that. So let's see. Stella. Mm, there we are. All right, Stella, your mic should be active.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity and thank you for the wisdom that you're pouring into us. So, yes, I don't spend as much time as I would have loved to building my career, because I do have a peculiar situation. I am a mom of multiples. I have a set of twins and a set of triplets and a single one. And
Wow.
yes, it's been going on for a while. My oldest are 18, but I tend to realize that I'm always pouring into them. And that is a good thing, but I'm not able to balance it off building my career and building my business. And so that's why I give myself a 3.
Okay, absolutely. So sometimes it's not an overwhelm of work. It's maybe, like you said, we need to do more of it. And for you, it's, think about how can I plan? How can I plan for it? And even if it's one day a week of giving it, a few hours, what are my
Mm,
goals? And just
mm,
writing out your goals to start with, and then, break that out into, okay, what's one step I can take eventually, like every day? What's one little thing I could do? Even if it's a 10-minute thing, it's just making progress, and not
mm,
perfection, but progress. And then eventually you get to the point where they're going to be off and working and doing their own
mm,
thing, and you'll develop more time where you can allocate that. So different phases of our life, things are going to be a little bit less in career, or there'll be less in family, just it's about what's good for me, what's healthy for me, am I living my life that are based on my values and my you know who I am, and
mm,
what I feel my purpose is, or am I living life for somebody else and for other
mm.
things? So it's, that sense of peace and calm is what we're trying to go for, I think, here with that balance. But thank you for sharing that.
Thank
So
you so much.
you're welcome. So in terms of financial, so if career area covers how we earn our income, the financial area covers how we spend it. So in this area, this refers to the time and energy we spend in financial planning, in bill paying, in debt reduction, in like making investments, and also in saving money. So where would you fall in that? And you can put it in the chat, or you can just, keep it to yourself, either way. But let's just see where you're at on in the financial area. So time and energy we spend in financial planning. Okay, so the next area that we see there is community. So there's so many ways to give back to our community. I mean, think of something that you enjoy or feel strong about, such as coaching, or volunteering, with the underprivileged, go to a food shelter. The holidays are coming up. There are a lot of people that need not only donations, a lot of, shelter areas, food banks. They need things to help people that are less fortunate than we are. Maybe it's serving on a board or taking initiative with, on a council committee, some kind of a leadership volunteer role to help other people maybe score, take a look at Ed and John here on the call with us. I mean, they're living that right now, part of that community. So where are you from 0 to 10? Are you very satisfied with how much you donate out and you interact with the community and you give to others, or could you do a little bit more? Okay. All right. So the next area then is social. Danielle, I'm reading what you wrote. Do you want to come in and tell us about that? Okay, Ed, can you help Danielle?
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Danielle's mic is open.
Thank you. Hi, Ed. How are you guys?
Hi.
So I was I was sort of sanctioned by a company to lead other sellers. And it's all volunteer, but I've put so much effort into community that my own business has been just suffering. So
Mhm.
I created these weekly parties for 4 hours, and it forces me to have 4 hours where I work on my business while other sellers I'm helping them as well.
Good for you. Yeah, that's a really creative way to do it. I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways that we can come up with some solutions to create, within each of these areas. And it sounds like that's working. That's awesome.
I think so. Hopefully the company will notice, and we'll hear some good feedback.
Right. And that kind of goes to that block time again. Not that block time's everything.
Absolutely.
We brought it up, so we might as well just keep going with it. But yeah, just to be able to, hey, this is the time for this, and the rest, I'm you probably, I don't know where you have more fun, but it sounds like that it's balancing out.
I think so.
Good.
Finally.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's great. I know. So the next area then is social life. So, no matter how supportive our family is, we need additional relationships in our life, friends, neighbors, different people. So you have to ask yourself, when was the last time I had lunch with a friend, or coffee, maybe invited another couple over for dinner, or hosted a party of some sort. Maybe it's the holidays, stepping up instead of somebody else always kind of running it. Or you pick a holiday within the family and bring out everybody over. Friends bring a needed perspective into our lives, that if we're not taking the time or taking the initiative. And I think the hardest part is we get so out of balance and we're so busy, doing things, or we have so much time. Our kids have activities and sports, and it's like trying to find time for ourselves is hard, let alone trying to find time, to just, go out for dinner with a friend, or, just a phone call. This Zoom thing is really sometimes as awful as people might think of it. Oh gosh, I hate to go online, but reality is that Zoom, here's another tool, or FaceTime on our phone, is you can always prop your phone and just have a conversation face to face with your friend, instead of just, by ear. Bring your lunch or bring your coffee and just sit there and have coffee for 10 minutes. If you're at work and you're having coffee with somebody on your break, what a great way to do that, just face to face. It just kind of changes everything. And it draws you closer. It's like when you can see somebody's expression, and you just connect better with them. So that's just an idea too, just to be more social. If you don't have time on the weekends or in the evenings, or you work different hours than other people, it can make it tough, but we can find a way to connect. And that FaceTime or Zoom, FaceTime is so easy. My kids do that all the time anymore. I'm so grateful that was invented, because I never really was in touch with my parents when I went to school and all that. So, because it costs too much to call. Let's see, what's the other area? Okay, so now we're on family. So when we talk about family, where would you rate yourself? So this is an important area for most of us in terms of achieving a sense of balance. And consider not only immediate family, such as spouses or children or partners, but sisters, brothers, parents, grandparents, and even those friends that maybe they're friends, but they really are family. Those extended people in our lives that really they're there, they have your back, they know you better than anybody. And, think about the relationships that you have with them. Are they as strong as we want them to be? What can we do to improve them? And a lot of times it's picking up that phone and just starting a conversation and seeing how they're doing and listening. And if you want tips in terms of building relationships and connection, I mean, we have a lot, like all of our programs tend to focus on that to some degree. But I would recommend reading How to Win Friends and Influence People. And then you're always welcome just to reach out to me too, and I'll help you. But building that connection with people is so important. And I kind of feel like that is a foundational element that we have to have is the connection with people to be able to create balance in our life, to feel comfortable with ourselves and within ourselves it comes from connection. So that, don't push that one aside. That and social life, they're all so important. Let's take a look at the next one, which is personal growth. And really personal growth, I mean, when you look at that, it's developed to us individually. So many times, like we drift away from different things that bring us joy. Some of those activities or those fun things like sports or hobbies, maybe gardening, playing music throughout the day. So we just go home and put the TV on or go home and make dinner and forget about the music. And think about the impact that music can have on our spirit, our liveliness, and how that can help us in creating just more happiness and calm that in turn helps to create more balance. So we want to reserve this category really for the things that we enjoy, and whether or not your spouse, your wife, husband, boss, partner, whoever, kids think you should be spending time on it. This is for you. This makes you happy. If you like sitting down and reading, or you like sitting down and crocheting, or you like building birdhouses, whatever it might be, it doesn't matter. Just make sure that, take a look at how much time you really spend on things like that. And maybe that's an area that we need to focus on. Another area then is our health, which I think is pretty self-explanatory, but so often we neglect it either through our eating habits or our exercise habits, or talking to people. That's a big part of our health, our mental health. Are we having conversations with people that are meaningful, that help us just to share our thoughts, our feelings about things, where we don't feel like we're being judged on it, that we find we have that friend member, family member, or friend that we can just open up to, and they listen, and they give us advice if we're asking for it. So are we getting out a few times a week, even if it means get up a half hour early and go walk around the block? Just make it a habit. A lot of where we're at in life it's based on the habits that we've made. And so until we focus on, well, what are those habits? What do I do every day? And is it really bringing me that balance and that happiness? If not, then we need to change the habit and start doing something else. And the habit forms over a period of time. It's not going to happen just because you do it once. So exercising, I've been getting up with my husband. I got out of the habit of working because my friend got a job that started really early. I was getting up at 4:30 as it was with her. And then she had to move it back even more. We both agreed that wasn't going to happen. So, the 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock time frame, get up, walk for an hour, then I still have time to come back and get ready for work, and make sure the kids are out the door. So exercise, diet, am I eating the right foods? Am I feeding my brain? Am I feeding my body for success, to make me feel better, to be able to run and be more efficient? And and if we don't really know what to eat or what we like, then be willing to try something different, pull out geez, you could find so many interesting meals, maybe eat one meal a week that's vegetarian, where we don't have meat, but there's other things, ways of eating that are going to be very satisfying to you. And you never know, you may just find something that you really thoroughly enjoy. So health, and then the last but not least is spirituality. Okay, so this one, it addresses our need to connect to something that enhances our spirit. And so, no matter what, what your belief system is, there's that spirit from within, that spirit that other people have, and it's connecting to it. A lot of us, it's a higher power. And so, whether it's formal activities such as going to worship, study, going to church, mass, it also includes a wide range of other things such as just meditation and yoga and Tai Chi, or going to retreats, a men's retreat, a women's retreat, a marriage retreat, um, gosh, I'm sure there's plenty more opportunities, but how often do we do that? I keep saying I'm going to do yoga. I just know it's going to hurt. So I kind of keep putting it off, but meditation is something that I really try to meditate. And even if it's not like you have to have a certain setup and all that, but if you can just stay calm and sit in your car when you get there early, turn the car off, close your eyes, and just sit and be present in the moment. And that's a form of meditation, of thinking, of just, or even just clearing your mind and listening to what comes to you. So these are just things and ideas that may be beneficial for you. Okay. Okay, let's try to check the chat out for a second, make sure I wasn't off on anything. So let's take a look now. We're going to go here's some practical things. We're kind of winding down, where it's 12:08. We should be done on time, by 12:30. So don't worry about that. But so here's some practical guidelines for creating work-life balance. And first of all, just defining our priorities. So, in order here's some guidelines now. So we talked about, creating that balance and prioritizing and being intentional. So we have to identify what matters most to us, both in work and life. So what are your priorities? What are your values? What do you value most in life? What are your personal values? Are we an owner, a small business owner that we ask someone to do something that may go against their values, and then you wonder why things aren't happening right. What kind of, we have to think really about our leadership and how we present ourselves and present, our ideas, and ask, if we're asking people to do overtime and they're a coach and they have, a game that they have to go coach, maybe their values are family. And if we're asking them to work overtime certain hours and we're mandating it, and we look at them because they don't want to, we look at them then as a team player, we need to stop in our tracks right at that moment, because what's happening is that you don't know what their values are, number one, and number two, you're asking them to go against them and to do something. And so the pushback that you're receiving is just something that you're putting out. So, what matters most in life, not only to us, but also think about your team, the people you work for. Do I know what their values are? And how do I find out? That you could call and ask me off this program, but we can talk a bit about that. We do different exercises to help us identify those in different classes. But also use these priorities then to guide your daily decisions and commitments. So what are my priorities? Okay, what am I doing every day to align with those priorities and to align with the values that I have? All right, the second area then is set and respect boundaries. So someone mentioned that earlier in terms of, creating balance and having boundaries is important. So establishing work hours and stick to it. Just maybe you slacked off during the day, then carry that over and you finish it the next day. Make that your priority for the morning, or go into work maybe a little bit early that next day if you have time, and fire that out. But respect those boundaries because other people need you to. The people in your life need you to respect those boundaries. You're not showing up for them if you're only showing up for work. And if you're dragging it on and making it last twice as long as it should just because you're distracted by things and you're allowing that to happen, it's not fair to the other people. And then it throws everybody's balance off. Avoid checking emails and taking calls outside of those hours unless it's truly necessary. I mean, it's easy to say if you have a 9 to 5 and you can leave everything at work. A lot harder when you have a small business, but all the more important that we set those boundaries because we have to be able to create some balance. We have to be able to shut down a little bit. If we don't recharge, we're not going to be any good for anybody else. If our health starts to fail because of the stress that we keep, putting on ourselves and accepting, then we're not going to show up for other people. The next guideline is to schedule personal time as you would schedule a meeting. So put it on your calendar. If it's, a lunch, coffee, go get your hair cut, read a book, go to the library, whatever it might be, take a walk around the block, schedule, put that on your schedule so that you don't forget it. Number one, easy to do that, but also so that you'll follow through. Okay. Make these commitments to yourself, just like you would make it for somebody else. All right. Learn to say no gracefully. This one can be pretty tough. If we're people pleasers, I know you can always raise your hand online, but if, raise your hand if you want. But I tend to be sometimes a people pleaser. I like to help people. But I really have to learn to say no and do it gracefully so that we're not being offensive or we're not, sometimes those extra tasks or somebody, hey, would you be able to organize this? Sometimes we can't, and it's okay to say no. Just, hey, thank you for that. Thank you for considering me. I really appreciate, you thinking of me in this. Unfortunately, right now I have my schedule is booked and I already have something going on during that time frame and I really can't make it, but please keep me open for future opportunities. You can always just to say something polite and allow yourself to protect your energy. Just say it in a respectful and a confident way. That's all. And people respect you for it. The next area then is to use your time wisely or technology. So meaning turn off notifications during personal time, or just leave the phone at home if that's possible. I think people kind of get wiggy when we don't have our phones with us. But if everybody that you care for, your family's all right there and you're not expecting anything else, then maybe it's time just to put it away. Or, even the kids, creating that balance in their life too, getting them off that technology and setting it aside. At first, people are going to be mad because you didn't answer their call, if you didn't respond to them right away. But they'll get over it. And they'll get used to it. And they'll maybe recognize when you tell them, I'm just trying to create some personal time and downtime for myself so that I can recharge. They'll respect that. Maybe they'll try it themselves. So use tools that'll help you manage tasks and reduce digital clutter. So even like when you're online, if you can file things right away, just like paper, my husband always says, touch it once and then put it aside. So, and file it or do something with it, manage it. Same thing with technology. We have, 4,000 emails. It's sometimes that number just kind of gets on you and then it starts to eat at you and it creates that anxiety that we don't need to have when we're trying to create balance. So take breaks and use your PTO. So don't think that you have to be the one that has to work all the way through lunch. Even if you have your sandwich and you work through lunch, maybe take 10 minutes to go walk outside. Just go outside of the building, get some fresh air, feel the sun on your face, walk around the building one time. And just even if it's that's going to make a huge difference. It did for me every time I did that when I was working in the office. I had to get out of the office a little bit. And it's just a breath of that fresh air and just breathe in and feel it in the presence of this great world that we live within. And then this last one is reflect and adjust regularly. So check in with yourself. Sometimes it's daily, but it may be even just weekly. Like, how have my goals shifted? Am I accomplishing what I've been wanting to accomplish? And am I feeling calmer? Am I feeling more balanced? How am I feeling right now? What do I need to change? What's working? What's not working? What do I need to change? Okay, so then plan for it. All right. So um that's, practical guidelines, just kind of tying this back into our balance wheel. Um and some of the ways that we can create those different balance. Here's some different examples then for each area. So let's tap back into the wheel. So the first area is career. And we have to ask ourselves, so how can I bring my career time back into balance? And some possible ideas might be just this: go home from work on time. Okay, you're going to go home for dinner. You tell your wife, I'm going to be there, or husband, or whatever, who's cooking that day. Hey, I'm going to be home at 5 o'clock, and and why don't we have dinner out on the patio tonight? Do something different. Uh, Ask for cooperation to balance. So sometimes we need to have help or bring people in and say, hey, I've been working on this, and I really need a little bit of help on it. What do you think? Would you be able to help me with this? Don't be afraid to give other people opportunity to grow and learn. It's not necessarily relinquishing your duty. It's also a lot of times it's taking on leadership and saying, hey, this might be an area that somebody else can learn from and grow from. So delegate it. And at the same time, they're going to be helping you too. Okay. Negotiate a change with your current employer. So if things just aren't working, it's overwhelming, you need to do something different. Don't be afraid to ask and speak up for yourself. Okay. All right. Financial area, resist the temptation to buy the latest trend. I remember when the newspaper and there were ads that came out all the time, and I would read the ad, and my girlfriend, we'd see him, my girlfriend would say, gosh, I need to stop shopping at like we were talking about, just practices that we could maybe stop doing for a while. And I said, one of the things that I did was I just stopped opening up the ads, like the Sunday paper. And I just wouldn't even look. I wouldn't be tempted then to, oh gosh, that's really cute, I should go take a look at that, and be tempted by it. Then all of a sudden you don't spend that extra money. Get organized with your finances. It's really important. You're not going to rest until you know that you've got enough money aside, can pay your bills, and sometimes it means you have to let go of a few things, or your spending habits need to change, go in a different direction. Maybe to go out to dinner more than once a month. A lot of us, we can spend a lot of money on going out to eat, and we want to change that if we don't have enough put aside for future needs. Okay. So get organized, set money aside for future. Let's take a look at this next area, which is health. So here's some ideas. Go to bed and get up early the same time every day. Never really, I kind of lean towards that, but I tend to still stay up a little bit late. I'm really trying to back that up because I definitely know that I'm not getting enough sleep. So I don't know about for you, like, what might be beneficial. Exercise 3 to 4 times. It does help you sleep. It's going to make us feel better about ourselves. It's going to just make our bodies more healthy and give us more energy. Meditate, breathe, silence. And like I said before, mentioned is unplug. Just turn it off and shut it down. Trust me, we're not as people aren't going to, if anything, people aren't going to miss us, and it's going to force people to make some decisions for themselves. I don't think we have to be the ones to always be, putting out fires. We need our people around us. And if this goes with work, they have to think and put out fires on their own. Reading that book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, 4 problem-solving questions. What is the problem? What are the causes of the problem? What are the possible solutions? What's the best solution? And then you can take action. And for my recommendation as a business owner, if you have people that are there and do that, and they come in and they're constantly asking permission for things, it's really our job is to build our people. And this is one way to help them do that. And also to take control in situations is to have them go through answer all those questions. They can always come in and bring it in and then walk through it with you, but let them come up with the ideas and the solutions. People buy into a world that they help create. Let them help create a world that they want to live in. And so and you don't know what kind of world until you ask. So put some of that responsibility on them, and everybody wins in that situation. You can always say no, or redirect them a little bit, change it. But first you want to appreciate what they've contributed. So the next area then is family. So have a special, here's an idea, special like family reading time. Either you all get a book and you all sit down and you all read together, or somebody reads a book out loud and you take turns reading it. Um, I never done that necessarily in that way. And I just think that's such a great idea. Plan on going family outings, plan something so everybody has something to look forward to, even if it's for, Sunday afternoon, or, all day Saturday around sporting events or whatever they might have. Or if you go to a sporting event, why not tag something else on? Have a traditional family meal at the same time each week. So if it's Sunday or if it's a Wednesday night, depending on what time frame everybody works, little ideas on things that can make a real difference in creating balance. Here's some social, have a dinner party, go to a movie, cultural event, go see a show. There's all kinds of things. Cleveland is loaded with opportunities in the arts, museums to go to, and all kinds. Share a lunch or coffee time with a friend you haven't seen in a while. And self-explanatory. We already talked about FaceTime and other ways to do that. Here's some other personal examples. So reward yourself every day with at least 30 minutes of free time. And just pencil that in, block it in, slow down, take a deep breath and think, okay, what first, what do I have to do first? What comes before everything else? All right. And write it down. Like I said, that writing it down crystallizes it. And then you can check it off and you can reward yourself that way. It makes you feel good when you finally can cross something or check it off, and make it big, exaggerate it, because it feels good. And you're using some gestures and energy that burns some of that extra energy that builds up. Plan fun and relaxation. Again, take those walks, get outside, just get a ball and kick it around in the backyard and have some fun. Balanced application for community. Here's some examples. Develop compassion, patience, and tolerance for others. Go where somebody is less fortunate, and let that empathy come out. It'll open up your heart. It opens up other people's hearts, and we're all gonna feel so much better about life when we do that. Do something meaningful in your spare time. One of the ways that we can show compassion truly is just putting a smile on our face as we walk by people. I'm so surprised these days where people just kind of put their head down, or they're looking at their phone, and people don't pick up and just connect with people. And a smile is it's a way for us to be able to connect with other people, and it just touches people's soul. We don't know what life or where people come from, what they're dealing with. And so as a result, you might just make somebody's day and just shift the way that they're thinking with a simple smile. Do something meaningful in your spare time and give back in an area where you've received much, those gifts. Spiritually, maintain a positive mental attitude, expect the unexpected. That way you're not caught off surprised. And, just think about it, right? Learn to laugh with life's experiences. Last week when I was in Colorado visiting my brother and helping to take care of him with Alzheimer's, and he's at the later stages, he still can walk, but he does the Alzheimer's shuffle, and he can eat, but it's a little rough sometimes depending on what's on the plate. But, so often my sister-in-law would look at each other and we would just start cracking up laughing because he would out of the blue just blurt something out, and it made no sense to the real world, but it was just so, unexpected, and just charming and lovely, and, and just awesome that I can tell that he was still trying to connect with us. So those are some thoughts in terms of what we can do. And so hopefully you're jotting some of those down, but in the handout that you had, they're also listed on there. And so I think just to kind of end this, we don't want to end anything that we spent time on without a plan to move forward and to take action on. And so taking a look at that balance wheel, and all the different areas that we've talked about, what would be the most important for you, for you to make some adjustments in. And so answer these questions for yourself. You know, what's the most important area? What adjustment am I willing to make? Maybe implement some of the things that we highlighted. And then what are the results that you anticipate from making this change? And you might even put like a time frame or something on it. And I say that just because otherwise we may not make it happen. And that's something that, quite frankly, that's something that I would put on my calendar. Okay, so I'm going to keep moving forward in the essence of the last 4 minutes that we have. But please, 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 I'm going to really ask of you is this is where you have to take control now and start to plan. Think about the different areas where maybe you felt kind of fall short in terms of balance and that you want to make a difference in. What are some things that you can do? When can you do them? Who are they with? What's my first step? You know, what do I need to implement? What's my plan? How does it align with my values? Okay. And what's important to me, my family, and our life and our lifestyle. Does anyone have any questions before we kind of wind down here for our final thought for the day? Who has a question, I should say? If you do, if you'll just put your initials in the chat real quick, and then Ed can bring you on audio. I'll give you a few seconds here, and if nothing, then I'll move forward, and you're always welcome to stay on after 12:30. But here's a saying. Oh, I love the game night idea. Yes, absolutely. Here's a saying that I came across. I don't know where this came from. There was nobody listed as to who actually said it, and I didn't say it or come up with it, but I liked it. But it's imbalance isn't failure, it's feedback. The goal isn't perfect balance every day, but awareness and small shifts that help us feel more whole. And I think there's a saying that I tend to use when I'm delivering training, and it's progress, not perfection. And so often we're so worried about being perfect every time that it throws off so much of our energy, and what we're working on, what we're focused on. And that perfection just sometimes can cloud the reality of the situation. So those small little moments can make a huge difference. And one other, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the jar of life, where you have the jar and you fill the jar with, there's like a professor and he fills the jar with large rocks. And he asked the class, is the jar full? And the students say, well, yes. And then he poured in pebbles, and the pebbles kind of filled in the spaces between the rocks. And he said, is it full now? And they said, yes. And then he poured in sand, and that filled in even more and filled in the remaining gaps. And then he finally added water on top. So it was completely full. And then this professor said, the jar represents your life. The big rocks are the things that truly matter, meaning like your health, your family, your passions in life. And if you don't put those in the jar first, you'll never fill them in later. The pebbles and sand are the smaller stuff, like the emails, the errands, the obligations, the everyday kind of smaller stuff that we get really busy doing. And he said, don't let them crowd out what's most important. If we put those in first and that fills our jar, we never have time for those big rocks that are most important. Work-life balance is about choosing your rocks first. Final thought for the day, and just a real quick, I'm going to zoom through this, but just in case you don't know much about Dale Carnegie, this is how we partner with people. We do all kinds of things. It's assessments, personal in-person training that are public classes, also live within an organization, live online training, which is interactive, more interactive than today. This would be considered a webinar because I'm doing all the talking, where we really get a lot of, live interaction. And then we also have subscriptions that works out really well for some organizations that includes live online and webinar combination. And in areas such as, public speaking, communications, confidence, leadership, human relations, controlling attitude, stress, all this, sales, customer service. I mean, it's a plethora. But if it's dealing with people, I mean, we can even help you in terms of business planning. That would maybe augment some things that SCORE does to help you. But so if you're ever looking for anything, on one of the handouts, you'll see that is my information. And I'm more than happy to just be in touch with you. You can send me an email if you have any questions or you want to just chat sometime. Really, I'm here to help. And I hope this made a difference. Even if there's one or two things that it allows you to focus a little differently or start to incorporate something different in your life from this, then to me, it's well worth it. So thanks everybody. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for being here. Have a marvelous day and make it a great day.
Well,
Thanks, Shar. Thanks, Danielle.
Jeannie,
Yes.
everybody, thank you so much for taking the time to share your thoughts on this important subject. I think I motivated a lot of people, I think. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
All right. All right. Everybody enjoy the rest of their day. So long.